Awesome sauce.
Don't like yours.
Okay. So E-Blast has went out. We're going live on YouTube. Let me post that we're live on Insta Story. All of these beautiful, beautiful technology. Okay.
Good for you.
Okay. I'm texting you the link right now. Awesome. Let's see.
So the link is for those who did not register.
Yeah. You know, people have to have 5 different ways to tune in. Like if you didn't see it on Facebook, you saw it on Instagram. If you didn't see it on Instagram, you saw it in your email. One way or another. All right, I'll just put the link in my bio. Publish. So we are here. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
How are you?
Good. Happy to be here with you.
Yes. This is like a very safe space. I feel like we just talk about any and everything, and we just always feel refreshed and just motivated to just keep doing what we love.
Yeah, I get that energy from you.
Well, I want to welcome everybody to the Faith and Finesse Mastermind Series. Today, I have the beautiful Lacey Tezano. She is the founder of Passport Journeys, and we're just going to dive into her journey a little bit and talk about all the different, maybe not all of them, but highlight some of the pivots and how she's had to use faith and finesse to kind of keep pushing through her journey to just fulfilling her purpose and living a happiness, joyful life. I think that's what the word I want to use is joyful. Because I think that's what we're all looking for. We just want to be happy and be at peace and experience joy. And so thank you for sharing your light with us today.
Yeah, thank you for asking me to join you.
So I'd like to start off with a moment of gratitude. Dear God, thank you for bringing us all here today at this time and place. I hope that everyone that's a part of this conversation pulls any and everything that they need in order to push through towards their dreams and their goals and aspirations. I pray that this conversation is casual and transparent, and that we're able to just really use ourselves as a vessel to help, encourage people and also be a source of strength, and if they're lacking in faith in an area, I hope that they can pull from our faith. And we're just super excited. And we know that this will be a victorious year and that you are still in control. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Awesome. So I like to start it off by talking about how we collided on our journeys. I actually found Lacey on Instagram. I tell her this all the time. She was the first person I reached out to that I had no connection with. And I was inspired by all of her travel blogging and pictures she was posting on Instagram. This is back in 2013 or 14. And she posted about starting a book club, and I had never been a part of a book club, and they were reading The Alchemist, and I said, I'm down. And so I popped up at Starbucks, and she said, hey, and gave me a hug, and we have been kind of connected ever since.
Yeah, I found the journal that I used during that book club the other day, during this COVID-19 quarantine we've been cleaning up, and I had you where you signed in book club meeting. I was cracking up.
Oh my God. What did I put in there? Oh my goodness.
You put your name and your contact details.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I had the questions. Remember how we used to go through those questions of what you read for the week and all that. So it was pretty cool.
Oh my goodness. That's oh my God. That's a true, what do they call it? Memorabilia. That's such a weird word. I don't even know the root of that word.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so Stacey invited me on her entrepreneurial journey. I think that was, 2016, 17? I want to say.
Yeah, around 16 we started. Well, Stacey, you started with in California, but
right.
Lacey, you started with in Houston. You said
right.
And I was like, Stacey?
No, Lacey, yeah. So yeah, what was going on in your mind for you to make that pivot and say, I think I need some help, and I'm gonna reach out to Precious for what this next project or what this next phase that you were looking to embark on?
I think I was really deep in my technology career at that time, and I started getting a bit numb to sort of what I was doing in my career at that time. So I wanted to get creative. I wanted to do fun things. And you and I had stayed connected after the book club, and I saw some of the creative things that you were, designing for other people and things that you were putting out there. And I was kind of like, well, number one, I want to support you. Like, I knew that after the design school stuff in New York and all that, you and I had talked a lot about just supporting each other. And so my first thought was, how can I support her? And then my second thought was, I want to be doing more creative stuff outside of work, and she can help me. So that was like what launched the thought.
Yes. And so I was super excited when she reached out, because she was like, yeah, I mean, I want to support you, and you're a Black woman, you're an entrepreneur, you out here killing it. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. And it was also the phase in my life where I was honestly still figuring it out. I was showing up every day and inspiring people, but behind the scenes, I was still trying to figure out what me operating in my purpose and passion on a daily looked like. And I was always that person that just kind of built the plane while it was in the air. And so I was definitely excited and just inspired by your vision for Passport Journeys. So I would love for you to share just your inspiration behind it.
Sure. So Passport Journeys was launched out of pure pain, right? So Passport Journeys came after my mother had a 9-month battle with cancer, and we, fought hard, lost the battle, and or before we lost the battle, as we were going through it, she and I got very intentional about how we spent our time together. So doctor said, you have 9 months to live. So we started doing things that we had not done before. So we were going on road trips and asking questions to really dig deep because we felt like the clock was ticking. So as I was grieving and mourning after she passed, I thought, why did it take a terminal illness for she and I to get very intentional? And that made me sad, but I also thought, okay, I need to use that for something. And then I kept thinking about, when I would reflect on Mom and I would think about it as a journey. And so I said, okay, how can I help people launch into a journey before, it shouldn't take something so traumatic. And so Passport Journeys was, I was living in the Middle East at that time. I was traveling a lot. And the tracker, my tangible tracker, was my passport. It was 20 stamps in, and I thought, when I go to a new country, how it made me feel, how, that I had been there. And, as it was a part of my grieving journey, I kind of put it all together as, how do I create a tangible tracker for people in the most, beautiful relationships, of their lives, especially mother-daughter. And so Passport Journeys came out of my own grieving journey and wanting to help people along their relationship journeys.
Man, when I tell you we need more people like you, my whole just business and work is developing people. And I can definitely say the mother-daughter relationship is a special one. I personally have had challenges with my mother-daughter relationship, with my mom being incarcerated when I was 16, and she was gone for like 4 or 5 years. And that was like really in my like true womanhood stages of really figuring out what being a woman is all a part of. But thank God she's home now, and we're still on the journey, and we're still figuring it out. And now you're a mom, and you have a daughter, and you have sons. So what has that pivot and transition been like?
So I think before I actually had my own kids, I, would romanticize the idea of what kind of mom I would be, right? So it's really easy to look at someone else as a mom and say, oh, I'm never going to do that, or I'm going to be this way and that way. And I think all of that is real hypothetical. Yeah. When you have your own kids, is what kind of mom are you being? What kind of mom are you showing up as? And so I think my role in Passport Journeys and how I was pushing it forward really changed as I began to say, okay, it's no longer a thought of what a mother should be, what a mother could be. It's, what kind of mother am I? And then, how are my kids receiving it? How are they benefiting from it? And how can I push others to kind of model that, or, just have a positive relationship and have a positive role as a mother.
I love the fact that you do, like, community is just like a part of your being, and you're always wanting to help others along the way. You have some people that they kind of go through their stuff and then maybe later they want to give some tips or give some advice, but you give real time advice and feedback and updates. Is there a specific reason why you feel the need to share that, like, as it's happening?
It's a good question. I think, especially in the social media age, what I've realized is when I'm hurting or when I need something, it's what can I grab or reach right now? And so if you're only telling people about, how to overcome things after the fact, you don't know who was going through it the same time as you were. You don't know who could grow and learn. And maybe I don't have it all figured out, but other people that are watching, following in my network, they may be feeling some of the same things. And I feel like if I share the journey real time, they can get real time help. And yeah, I might have to pivot. And yeah, what I was saying might not be right, but I'm always very honest about that. Like, hey, you know how I said, I've been doing this one thing for 3 weeks. That's not really working out for me. Actually, I crashed and burned, and I hope it works out for you guys. That transparency helps, but you got to share it real time so that others can, grow with you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think just like there's so much strength in vulnerability that people don't understand. And for beautiful souls like you that are open and transparent about their journey, I think it just has a longer lasting impact. And it's also like a sense of therapy, because I can say when I started being really active on social media, it was after a breakup. I was like needing some inspiration, and so when I started doing my inspirational videos, I was actually talking to myself. I needed to like bring joy to my life and empower myself and strengthen myself. And I think at that time we could only post like 15-second videos. So that was like the limit. But that video had got the most engagement than any of my other like selfies or this is what I ate today type of posts. And so I just kind of saw the impact and the engagement just boost. Like people are searching for that emotional connection. So what's been some of the like beautiful happy moments that you've experienced with some of your, I don't know, do you call them customers? Do you call them members? Do you call them friends? Like everyone that's a part of this passport journeys and that has, decided to make that commitment and go through the activities. Has it been like to get that feedback from the people that have really utilized the tool that you created?
Sure. So typically I call them clients.
Okay.
They are consumers. They have purchased something from me. They have purchased this book. They're purchasing services. So I would call them clients. But it's been pretty amazing to see the real genuine feedback that I'm receiving based on how Passport Journeys is transforming their relationships, how it has motivated them to dig deeper, love harder, be more intentional, less distractions with their relationships, and just to hear people engaging with their mothers and daughters, with their lovers, with the physical book. It's pretty incredible. It feels good. It fills me up. And then you can kind of just sigh, and just say, okay, that wasn't in vain, and you,
Right.
and you're like, all of that pain, all of that work, late nights up trying to create something, even if one mother-daughter pair would have reached out and said, hey, we're loving this. But I was blessed to have so many reaching out saying, hey, we just did our paint night. Hey, my mom and I just went on our road trip. It was fabulous. So getting that constant feedback is that validation, right? It's that reassurance that like, hey, I'm on the right track.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm also just grateful to have been a part of that launch and that part of just like the baby phase and really wanting to elevate it. I think that the activities that you put in there, they are very intentional and even so more of the discussion questions, because it's communicating is, a lot of us aren't good at it. And I've even realized like I'm really good at business communication. Personal communication, I'm still figuring it out. I'm still working. I am nowhere near perfect at all. And it's just allowing myself to go through my emotional process, and also being just aware of others and how they process different things. So do you just feel like the fact that, you've been through several different emotions, you knew how to cater and design this process? Because were you intentional about which activities should go first to like really make sure that it gets to a point where there's a true transformation that happens at the end? Like, how did your mind, heart come together to create that?
Yeah, good question. I think the creative process included a lot of things. It included a lot of thoughts and emotions behind which activities need to be included, which sequence of activities. But to be honest, what really drove what happened, and what was included, what wasn't included was, what did I enjoy the most that I did with my mom? And so it was very personal. It was, extremely intimate in terms of, in my 9 months, even though the passport journey is a 12-month commitment, in my 9 months with my mom, what activities did we do and what hit the hardest, right? What felt good? What did we complete? And I was like, you know what, like, it had the greatest impact. So no matter what order that came in, no matter what, all I knew was these activities felt good. These activities brought us closer together. We were very intentional with these. Those got to get in. Those have to get in there. And so that's what fueled it.
Yeah, I am just really amazed at the fact that your pain was able to create such a beautiful product that's impacting. I feel like, do you have any international clients yet? You do?
Yeah.
So you're worldwide?
Yes. Well, so
who knew that passport journey was worldwide? I mean, it makes sense, but I didn't know that was a real thing.
So my first mother-daughter workshop was in Doha, Qatar. And that's where I was living when Passport Journeys was birthed. It was in Doha. It wasn't in Houston. And so,
why did I not know that? That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when I got home and actually got the content created and got the physical books, I stayed in touch with those that came to my mother-daughter workshop in Qatar. And then I have friends in London who purchased it, who are just really good friends who wanted to support, but also have things they want to work on in their relationship. So for sure, it's in Qatar and the UK.
Wow.
Not a huge global presence, but I feel that the app that will be launching this summer is really what's going to launch that global presence.
Whoop, whoop. Great segue into the next question. Yeah. Definitely want to talk about the app and about that pivot. I do think, of course, technology is always the wave of the future, but developing an app, some people may think that's like very far-fetched of, okay, so you're going to turn this book into an app. How does that work? So what was that decision-making process, or what made you say, yes, I think I'm going to just move forward and do this. I think this is like the best next step.
I don't think that I was super clear on what the next step was going to be, but I knew that scalability had to be in there, right? I knew that me stuffing these envelopes, like, several nights a week, running to the post office, doing that, with the stickers and, that whole process, while I loved it. And I think that any dream that you start has to come in a very raw and, version where you put your soul into it. That's not sustainable for me. I have a career, I have kids, I have a home life. And so for me, the thought was, I don't know what's next, but I know I need to be able to reach more people, and I have to be able to, recreate the process. I need to be able to replicate this. And so technology is the obvious answer. I'm in IT, my career is in IT. So I knew that it had to be something on a digital platform.
Right.
And then that's when I reached out to you. That's when I said, okay, Precious, the physical book was great for the first year. Okay, I can't keep up with this. What can I do? And we were looking for, if you remember, all kind of ways of, okay, how do we box it differently? Like, really about the branding and the marketing. And even that overwhelms me, thinking, okay, more beautiful boxes equals more work. That's going to be a lot more orders.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, that's still going to be overwhelming. It's got to be something that's on my phone. I got to be able to touch it. I got to be able to send it. So the app was then, after all of that thinking and kind of process of elimination, the app was the obvious next step.
See, all of this is that whole faith and finesse process. Like, I don't know what's next, but I know I need to figure out, I know there's something better to come, or it's a better, there's always a better way to do something. And I definitely applaud you for, one, making that acknowledgement, and then two, making the decision to take action without knowing exactly what that full game plan was. And then also reaching out for help. I think some people, you know, reaching out for help is not a common practice for some people. And I think also it's that faith part, right? And like having faith that someone does care about my vision and want to support me, and be a part of me really making this come into fruition. So I can definitely say when you reached out about turning the book to an app, I was super excited, only because I had started being interested in just how apps are designed, ironically. Well, let me not say ironically, we just tend to be aligned with a lot of decisions, and it's like, it's just this thing that we have. So yeah, with me just being interested in just UX design and being able to, I mean, I think I'm a techie as well. I'm definitely going to be that person that has a whole like smart home and all of that. I don't know. I haven't thought about how to raise my kids with technology and all that stuff yet. Not there just yet, but for lack of better words, I was definitely excited when you reached out about that. And I think that alone, just I can honestly say, reflecting back, I did not realize the amount of, I don't know if it's strategy or just the thought process of taking a physical experience to a virtual experience. I think that, of course, I've had to be forced to do that during this quarantine time. So I'm sure some part of that process has helped me with where we are now. But really thinking through of how to create an experience, because even with branding, it's all about, you know, how do you make that person feel when they engage with your product or service? And now that we're creating a virtual experience, you know, we had to think about, oh, the button should go here, or there should be a pop-up message here, or that color actually won't look good on the phone. And so we really just became students, and we just figured out, and there were so many pivots we had to make. What do you feel like was one of the biggest lessons, as well as one of the biggest rewards? I know it's still in the beta phase right now, and you know, we're just starting out, but I know there were a lot that you learned, you know. So if you want to just pick that best one to share with the beautiful people, that would be awesome.
So biggest lesson learned, I think, is that before you approach an app development company, you need to be very clear about a lot of things, right? So I think the biggest lesson is seek clarity, get real crisp and clean on what you're wanting from the app, do your own research so that you're educated on what do you need to bring to an app development company so that they can hit the ground running. So if you don't, there's going to be a lot of bumps, bruises, growing pains, a lot of lessons that you learn that could have been avoided if you were able to come to a company in an intelligent way, articulate your vision, have the documentation, at least know a little bit more about the process. And so you need clarity. I was very unclear when we approached that company. I was unclear for many months in the beginning. And then all of a sudden, when I got clear, I looked up and was like, okay, this is not the direction. Wait, everybody pause. We're 6 months in at this point. Everybody's like, wait, pause and pivot. No, ma'am. So getting clear beforehand is the biggest lesson learned.
Yeah, and I can definitely commend Lacey. She's such a gracious boss. Like, that's probably the 2 words that I can give her. She's a gracious boss. And and she knows how to pivot with grace and style and finesse, for sure. I learned a lot with just going through that process and being able to, you know, there's just so many different ways to communicate nowadays. Like, you have email, you have phone, you have Slack, you have Zoom, and then you also have people that are all in different places. And so when it comes to developing something so technical, I didn't realize how important documentation is. Like, of course, we have meetings all the time and someone takes minutes and all of that. Or someone may send a, quick email recap, but there's so many details. And so to any of you that are going into the tech space or just creating something new and you really want to build it with a brand and legacy in mind, documentation is everything. So if I don't know if it's your kids or a niece or someone that is willing to be an intern or help out, because I feel like it's impossible for you just as one person to kind of manage all that communication, but having some support from an admin documentation will definitely add a lot of value in the long run, because essentially you're documenting the journey. It's like, what happened? Because, we have so many things happening one day. We have work, we have personal life, and, we have our passion projects. And it's like, wait, what did we talk about last week? I know we had a lot of like moments of like, okay, let's reconvene. Let's see what's taken place over the past 30 days. And so I'm grateful for those experiences. And of course, with the lessons learned, you go into the next phase, stronger and more equipped. And so what's some of the feedback you've been getting so far with the app, and kind of what are your plans for the future?
So I think in general, the concept is or has been very well received, right? So I'm keeping the beta pretty tight in terms of who is accessing it, who's giving our test flight feedback. And in general, the concept is amazing, right? And so people, they feel it, they love it, they love what it stands for. There's a lot of things. I think the app needs to be more intuitive for how do you move around it. So that's one of the biggest pieces of feedback. People love the fact that you can upload your pictures from the activities. They love that you can't move on to the next one until you've uploaded a picture from the activity. I think the stage that I can't wait to get to is when we're having those pop-up notifications and they're guiding you through the app. Because when you've spent 16 months on a project, you're so immersed in it that you can't recognize where they're like, oh, that's not that intuitive. And where I probably thought, oh, duh, you just click, this button and you click here and you upload your photo here. They're like, if I'm sitting there and Lacey's not sitting next to me, would I know how to click through it? And so that's some of the feedback we're getting, but it's being very well received.
Yes. So I want to pivot a moment into, just your support system. Like, you are Lacey, the friend, you are Lacey, the mom, and you're also Lacey, the wife, and Lacey, the founder and entrepreneur. So how is that pivot and now balancing all these roles? And, I guess, priority shift different days. And I know you also take care of your grandmother as well. So just give us a little insight on the day in the life. Like, how do you do it? How?
So the pivot has not been graceful, finessey. I pretty much crashed into each new role. When I first came home from the Middle East, my husband and I were dating, and boom, we were like, we are ready. So I crashed into being a wife, and it was like, okay, let's turn this on. And then, we had our first child, and it was boom into that role. I'm also a bonus mom, so I became a mom pretty quick. And so the roles that I have now have been pretty head first, jump into it, roll with the punches. And I think right now I'm finally getting into like take a deep breath. Okay, everybody good? And I think what that looks like is I am a mom of 3. I do have my 80-year-old grandma living in the room right next to me. I do have my husband upstairs working because it's COVID-19 quarantine time, and I do have you on the line talking about my passion projects and passport journeys while my Outlook is going off in the background because my team is like, hey, what about this assignment? So the juggle of it's not real clean. It's not this, every day looks the same. But my big thing in 2020 has been, as long as I manage my time well, I'll be okay. As long as I bucket out hours literally for each person and for each thing, and I manage to those buckets, I'll get close to a really good month every month.
Yeah.
So the days never look the same, but in general, everyone needs a lot of my time. And it's just how many hours do I need to get it all done?
Oh my God. So brand strategy hat on, you really need to do, I don't know if it's a 15-minute training or something about how you block out your time. Like, I know we had a strategy session and you were sharing, I was like, wow, I'm like, what am I here for? You already know how to organize. I was over there taking notes, watching you. So if you give us like a quick little insight or little tutorial on how you time block, because I can definitely say, even in my community, even on my comments, time management is just a thing that people are like, who is doing it and how, So I guess, if you can just walk us through what questions you ask or how do you really calculate it, because the number of hours in a day does not change.
Right. So the big realization that I had in January, or I had it in December because I started January 1st, is that I can't think of my strategy for the year and manage my time that way, right? I can have big goals of what do I need to get accomplished this year? What do I need to get accomplished this quarter? But in terms of keeping Lacey productive and figuring out where my time needs to go, it has to be looked at in 1 month chunks, because I'm not going to know if I look up in a couple months and I'm like, wow, I have, not been productive. I've wasted a lot of time. It's already too late. I'm already 6 months into the year,
right,
and I'm trying to pivot and look at, oh, well, let me figure out what the next 6 months look like, instead of let me get 30 days in and look back and say, okay, how did I spend my time this month? And how did I say I was going to spend my time, right? That's the important thing, is the delta between what did you say you were going to be doing this month and what did you actually do, right? And then what do you need to change to get closer to that next month? So what I do is I sit down and say, what does a perfect month look like for me? What is a perfect 30 days, or however many days are in the month? If it's 29, if it's 30, you do days of the month times 24 hours. So roughly you'll have about 700 hours to work with each month, right? So if you have a bucket of 700 hours, you have to take away the stuff that's off top, right? So how many hours are you going to spend sleeping? Subtract that. How many hours are you going to spend commuting or doing your career work? Whatever you do and it's constant, subtract all that. Most people, when they subtract all of those constants, you'll have about 250 to 300 hours a month to play with, right?
Yeah.
Those can quickly escape you and get dropped into a whole bunch of, non-productive buckets. Instead of doing that ahead of time, plan, right? So with those 250 hours, what does a really amazing Lacey, what is she doing with those 250 hours? And you write it down. Yeah. So how many hours am I spending exercising? How many hours am I spending, with my husband one-on-one, to work on our marriage? You bucket everything out. And then I use an app, it's called Hours. And I use it because it already has my buckets that I use each month. And then
loading now. Okay.
And what it does is, it allows me to track my time. I don't always stick to it, but when I do, it's really easy at the end of the month to say, okay, I'm going to pull up my actual, so how many hours did I say I was going to be doing? So for example, if you say I'm going to spend 30 hours this month exercising, and then you go to your app and you say, oh, okay, I only spent 20. Okay, so 10 of my exercise hours were spent somewhere else. Next month, what am I going to do to close that gap, right? And you do that with all of your buckets. The most beautiful thing that has happened is that I can realize when I'm off balance or when I'm off or when I'm feeling like I don't know what's wrong with me. Can typically look at where I have been spending my time lately, and that's it, right? So last year, what was happening is I would keep going to Darren's and say, I would be crying, I feel off, I'm not balanced. And I didn't know, number one, I mean, my baby was a year old. I had babies back to back. My hormones were going crazy. But also, I really wasn't balanced. So I wasn't spending time with my friends. I wasn't, exercising or doing what I said I was going to do. So what this allows me to do is when I say I feel off, okay, I said, let's say it's the end of the month. I said I was going to spend 10 hours with friends this month. I have spent 2 hours on a Zoom call. Of course I feel unbalanced because a perfect Lacey would be sitting at 10 hours of girlfriend time. You know what I mean? Right. It allows you to look at what is an ideal self and where's that ideal self dropping her time into? Like my hours are precious. Our pun.
Yes,
that slipped out. But they are, and I can look back and say, oh my God, how many hours did I spend on social media that could have gone to my babies and, all of that. So I'm going to do a TED Talk on it, and it's going to be called in 20 hours.
Yes.
When I get it all sharp and crisp.
No, for sure. Oh God. Hold on, my computer is on 13%, and I will not allow this to just cut off because I have a perfect finale for this whole conversation. 1 sec.
Okay.
And we're back. Okay. So definitely appreciate that quick tutorial. I definitely think you should do a TED Talk, and you will do one day. Definitely text me that link because a few of them are popping up, and I want to make sure I drop it in the description on the YouTube so people can be able to refer to that, because I think that's definitely a tool we all need right now. I know for me, I have several different buckets in addition to PAG and me building my brand as wealth community. I also have my nonprofit that I just became VP of, which was a whole other thing. I'm the second oldest of 10. So I have 9 siblings, and they're all coming into their adulthood and, needing that adult advice. Sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't. So especially during this quarantine time, I've really had to step up as a friend. And I just had to just trust God to order my steps. I've been doing a lot of meditating because there's a lot of people, a lot of demands coming my way. And so I just kind of asked for his discernment. Like even today, although it was my willing to go to the nail shop, definitely wanted to go, but it put on my heart to ask my grandmother. I'm like, hey, you want to go to the nail shop? And she's like, yeah. So, it was definitely a 6.5 hour day, just nails. So, from picking her up, making sure she's in the car safe, and then we get to the nail shop, making sure the people are taking care of her. Do you need water? Do you need this? And then, with quarantine happening, it's been like a 1-on-1 ratio. So it was a very drawn out process, but of course, better safe than sorry. So they kept the occupancy very minimal. And then of course, after that, it's oh yeah, your grandfather said we need some trash bags and he wants Subway got a deal. And can we sure can. We can do all those things. We're going to do it all.
You are brave out here running the streets with a grandma with COVID. We just reopened.
We had our masks, okay? We had our masks.
My grandma been asked to go nowhere until I see these numbers in 2 weeks. If in 2 weeks the numbers look okay, then she can go somewhere. Until then, she's not going anywhere.
So yeah, we definitely said a prayer before leaving the house. But yeah, so that's what I did today from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I said I was gonna. And Mondays I typically don't schedule too many meetings because Mondays are just Mondays. And so I typically use that time to just. Sundays I plan, but Mondays I do take the time to just readjust. I call it reality check. You need to reality check the plan because things change and priorities shift. And I'm grateful to have a team that I can delegate things to. And so, yeah, I mean, it's all with process and just shifting different things.
So one thing that makes it a little bit more digestible for people, and one thing that also I feel very energized by is if I look Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., you have 57 hours until happy hour on Friday. So 8 a.m. Wednesday morning to Friday at 5 p.m., you have 57 hours. And so I wake up super early before the kids and I ask myself on Wednesdays, okay, what do I need to do with these 57 hours to earn a margarita on Friday?
All right, earn, keyword,
earn, not just have one because it's Friday, but what am I going to do? How many hours? Okay, it's 14 hours of sleep, this, 20 hours of career work, whatever. And I bucket those out because 57 is a lot. Like, it's easier to feel like, okay, 57. What you also see is how quick those hours go. So like, yes. If I plan out my 57 hours, I don't have time to play with you. I want
don't have the time.
And okay, you're not going to fit in between, okay, kids, exercise, therapy. Yeah, I don't have time for your shit today.
Yes, exactly. I love it.
So yeah.
It's like written right there.
It is.
That's going to be a new thing of like,
Wednesday mornings. Yeah, Wednesday mornings, 57 hours to get you to your happy hour drink. What do you need to do? And then right before 5 p.m. on Friday, I'll look, okay, check. What have I done? Oh, I'm like 2 hours short on that. Can I make it happen? No, I can't. So, it's just practical.
Yeah. So there's a lot of self-accountability is what I'm hearing. Because
it has to be.
You're taking the initiative to have that conversation with self, having that reality check moment. Okay, where are you at? What are you doing? And I think it's just taking ownership. If you take ownership of your happiness, you should also take ownership of the process to get there. And you can't be dependent on anyone else. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I need an accountability partner, or I procrastinate, or this or that. I'm like, you must not know exactly what you're working towards or what you want, for you not to have the true desire to obey yourself, is how I put it. I'm like, if you want to do this, and I always say you define your definition of success and you're responsible for your happiness. So if you're not happy and you're not making any progress, then that all goes to show that you're not obeying yourself. You're not obeying what you believe that you're worthy of. And so,
but precious to a lot of people, all that's fluff talk, right? So I am touchy feely. I am, the emotional words. I am your purpose. What are you tied to?
Yeah.
For energy. I'm all those words. Yeah. There's people who don't operate like that. There's a lot of people who, just give me the numbers.
Yeah.
I need data. I need evidence to say I'm doing well in life or I'm not doing well in life. And so it just depends on, this kind of mixes it up.
Yeah.
For those people that need it black and white, like, yep, I'm on track. You can put it on paper. You can't really assess yourself with just emotion and like, well, that was a shit week, or, oh, I didn't do that well. Okay, but like, how do you know? Like, what were you measuring against? And so that's my big thing for 2020 is everything's got to be measurable. Mm-hmm. I can see it, and then I can manage my time against it.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to close out with some rapid fire questions, okay?
Oh, God.
Kind of like this or that. All right.
Okay.
So, oatmeal or smoothie?
Smoothie.
Audiobook or real book?
Real book.
Talk or text?
Text.
Jog or walk?
Walk.
You probably already answered this one, but wine or margarita?
Oh, margarita.
And what's your definition of love?
Love is showing up for the other person consistently, without fail, on the days that you want to, on the days that you don't want to, more than you would and better than you would for yourself over and over. That's love.
Over and over again. Yes, I love that. Okay, well, I appreciate you so much. I think this was a very awesome conversation. And I think what I love most is that with these masterminds, this content is going to live on forever. So being able to have this content and then, 6 months from now, a year from now, be able to reflect and see just the progress you made will be really, really dope. And how many views you have of like, passport journeys worldwide, global, how it already is. So, so you can give everyone just some encouraging words to just kind of get through this time and pushing through their pain and their purpose like you've done.
Yeah. So I think take your time while you have it. So, I talked a lot about managing your hours and doing all that. Your hours are going to look a lot different than the next person on social media and the other people in your house, So I think it's very important that we make our time intimate, we make it personal, and we don't compare or bump it up against anyone, especially during a quarantine, especially during a global pandemic. You have nothing to prove right now except survival, except, real peace. So just slow down if you need to, speed up if you need to, whatever is appropriate. Listen to your soul and figure out what it is and then do that. Don't do anything else that doesn't align with what you need right now.
Couldn't have said it better, guys. This is awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I will be texting you very, very soon in like seconds.
Okay.
So yes, love you and thank all of you.
Bye.
And have an awesome, productive weekend. Well, week.
Bye. It's Monday.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.